Welcome to In Focus with Eden Lane.
Tonight we take a look at some of your favorite segments from 2011. We began at 910 Arts Gallery for the Art District Best of 2010. And that was just a hint of the diverse art we'd see in the coming year. Among the dance companies was Colorado Ballet and their 50th anniversary. We met several writers, some at book signing events. And Colorado's big year in theater saw brand new theaters come on the scene. And some of Colorado's best musicians. Colorado's filmmakers put forth strong projects this year, and we followed one team to the Vail Film Festival for their world premiere.
It's the first night of the Vail Film Festival, and we're here for the world premiere of The Inner Room at the Cinebistro. Come on!
The Cinebistro is a special concept in moviegoing. In addition to the lounge in the lobby, you can have full tableside service right at your theater seat with a gourmet meal. And the team from The Inner Room took full advantage of their very first screening, the world premiere of their first feature film.
So we just saw the first screening of Jack and Mark's brand new film, The Inner Room. How did it feel to see your film in front of a live audience of some strangers? Not just friends and family.
Right. It felt good, actually. I thought it was great to see it on the big screen, and I was happy to see how it looked. You know, that's always a worry for me. And just to see how, hopefully, how the audience connected to the film. And so I'm really pleased with the outcome.
So you hadn't seen it on a large format like this before?
No.
And I know this is really the first time it's being shown, but tomorrow night is your actual big premiere in the large audience. What is your expectation now that you've seen it in a little bit of an audience?
I'm just hoping for the best. I don't know. I mean, it's nerve-wracking. I mean, you know, it's nerve-wracking in the sense you don't know what people are going to think, or people are going to feel the same thing about the film that you want them to feel about the film. So it's nerve-wracking but good. Like, it's like, all right, let's get this thing out here and see what people think about it. So.
And you've done this film festival thing before, but with shorts.
Yes.
So this is your first feature-length film.
Right, and with shorts, you're usually in a collection of shorts with other people, so you're not on the spotlight. So, you know, if they don't like your film, they're not focused necessarily on you. But with this, it's all about your film, so it's really, you know, that's why I think it's nerve-wracking, because it's all on you, and I think that if for that length of time the audience is checking out, which you really can't tell, but if they are, you worry about that. But if they're enjoying it, it's tremendous reward. So.
Well, the audience seemed to really have a good time.
Thank you.
And this was just the warm-up. The big premiere is tomorrow, and we're going to go along with them both and find out how it goes.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
You can win a DVD copy of The Inner Room from these Colorado filmmakers. Like our Facebook page and enter your comment for your chance to win. 2011 was an important year for theater in Colorado with many challenging productions. Among the most notable was Ruined. We visit the Denver Center Theater Company for a glimpse behind the scenes at the very earliest stages of their next production, Ruined. Here's a portion of my meeting with guest director Surratt Scott.
Tell me about Ruined.
Ruined is a play that's all too topical. It's still very much a part of the landscape of Africa, and frankly, I believe, of other parts of the world. This story is just told in Africa, in the Congo, the Democratic Republic of the Congo. You know, I think that anytime you have a story that is topical like this, and you can read about it in the newspaper, you can see it on CNN and some of the other broadcasts, you can sit there and say, oh my goodness, I didn't even know this was happening. It's troubling. Theater gives access in a way that is so extraordinary, even more than film or TV, because in front of you, this event is taking place in this immediate moment. You can take these kinds of stories, and everybody will be in the Congo and dealing with this at that moment. You don't have anything that separates you.
2011 marked the 40th anniversary of Cleo Parker Robinson Dance. It also marked the company's first visit to New Zealand, and Cleo created her first new work on her company in 10 years.
So this is it's a little different because you've invested so much, and it's a time that the economy is horrible, and people are saying people don't go to the theater and they don't have money for this, and this is, you know, and I say, but the arts we need them like we need water. We need them like we need food. We have to have them. Our children need them, and they need them all over the world. They need wherever we go. So I then realized I have to say something. And then that's when I realized, well, where am I? I am in the West. Then I knew I had to say, this is my journey. I am a Western girl. I'm not an Eastern girl. I didn't come out of New York. I didn't come out of the South. I was born right here. What stories do I have to say as an African-American woman? A woman of this rich culture that's right here. What do I have to say? And I'll tell it through the stories of others.
And that's what Dream Songs
And that's what Dream Songs is.
That ambitious trip and this long-awaited new work, does that mean that after 10 years of a break that we're going to be able to see more work coming with the Cleo Parker Robinson dance?
Well, you know, I think so. I think I love choreographing.
Well, I'm encouraged to hear that you think this is part of a series of works.
I do believe it. I think so. I pray so, because there are many stories that I couldn't tell. I think this is just the beginning. So I think there's more stories to be told. And I hope I encourage others, mostly young people, to tell their story. Because if they tell their stories, they'll be healthier and happier.
Thank you.
Honey, bless your heart. Bless your heart. You are fantastic. Oh my God, are you wonderful. God, she's great. You know that.
Opera Colorado had a new preseason program that centered around Leonard Bernstein's Trouble in Tahiti. This fun evening was called Sideshow and was the first performance held at the studio loft at the Ellie Calkins.
When you're talking to students, I'm sure they're surprised that you're all such young, gorgeous, matinee idol-looking kind of people that are coming in to sing opera. I'm sure they're expecting something very different. So when you're talking to them about opera, what's one thing that each of you says in order to explain what it is you do? What is opera? What do you say to a student?
I think one of the things that I have the most fun with is, as a mezzo, I play both a guy and a girl on stage in different productions. So
Very Lady Gaga of you.
Yes. And so explaining to a 5-year-old that I'm a boy, sometimes they're very confused. And then in the outreach shows, I also get to play Carmen, who's very much the bad girl. So dealing with some of the kids, it's like, I hated your character. I know, isn't it fabulous?
I get a lot of gratitude out of showing them that an opera singer likes other things too. So when they talk to me, I like to, explain, I don't just sing opera, I sing pop and Broadway, and any kind of music that they love that doesn't prohibit them from exploring opera too, they might find that they have a passion for it too.
I like to sort of put it into modern words. A lot of opera is comedy. There's a lot of comedy in opera, and a lot of these operas are very similar to sitcoms that are on TV, like Friends episodes, and if you say, it's like a rom-com, and everyone's like, really? And you're like, yeah, back when these were produced, they were, the sitcoms of the day.
I think some of the stories of opera turn people away because they can't picture themselves in that situation, but that's really not the point. It's a metaphor for other situations, or that same situation just out of proportion. And I think much like a visual artist like Sheila or Munch wouldn't paint a human being in their direct proportion or color necessarily, I think opera does that with its characters and stories as well.
Now we know in ballet, when you're wanting to wish a good performance to the artist, you say merde, and for the theater you say break a leg. What do you say in opera?
Toy, toy, toy.
Toy, toy, toy.
Toy, toy, toy. Well, toy, toy, toy. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It was an important year for the Vintage Theater Company, and among their accomplishments was the regional premiere of Avenue Q. And we got a glimpse of the opening weekend performance.
We
Grey Gardens was another regional premiere at the Vintage Theatre Company, which garnered the Outstanding Lead Actress in a Musical Award at the Henrys for its star, Megan Vandehey. From that accolade, she went on to star in Ragtime at the Arvada Center.
I was so taken with you in Grey Gardens, as you know, because we talked about it.
Right.
And it was such a momentous thing both for that theater, and it's interesting that it happens to be the same theater, same space where you started.
I
when you
loved
returned.
that. It was like coming full circle. It was lovely to almost to return home from where I had started a long time ago.
That kind of journey is something I think a lot of people don't realize that actors who choose to live and work here go through. What is it like for you now that you've established your career as an actor in Colorado?
Oh, I wish that I felt that way. I think I'm continually wanting to strive to feel as though I, as an actor, you always feel like this is your last role, And so, so I don't know. I don't know that I ever quite feel completely established, but I'm hoping to continue to feel that way in Denver.
I'll let you have
Okay.
that. I'm telling you as a member of the audience that we feel you're established, and it's on evidence at the Arvada Center's production of Ragtime.
Thank you.
The national tour of Next to Normal brought its original Broadway star and Tony winner for this role, Alice Ripley. Here's a look at a special moment from that episode.
What was it like for you when you won the Tony? We know you had been nominated before, but this is your first Tony, correct?
Yeah.
What did that feel like?
It was incredible. The only way that I can describe it would be that 45% of me was going, well, yeah.
You kind of have to feel that way, don't you?
Well, I've been doing this for
Yeah.
over 30 years. What I do on stage, just doing the thing on stage. So you're working towards something. So part of me goes, well, yeah, this is great. This is not too much. This is exactly what I wanted. But this 55% of me was going, holy jeez, I can't believe it. I can't believe this is happening to me. And it put me in a position of leadership that I like.
That's an interesting way to look at it. It puts you in a position of leadership. Tell me what you mean by that.
In the community, I feel like whether I liked it or not, I was suddenly very Alice in the community. My Tony speech and my what I get to deliver to the audience with Diana, they get to see part of me through her. And I'm happy about that because I like having a place in the community where I know where it is. I'm talking about the theatrical community.
You talk about the reaction when you see some of the audience afterward, the look on their face, even though you don't, I'm going to paraphrase you, even though you didn't know them before, you can see that they're changed for having been in the audience. What does that mean and how does that feel?
This is interesting because we're talking about my soul now. And this has always been a job to me, a job that I love. I take it seriously, But at the end of the day, that I'm an actor. Well, I want to still be able to say that, but I have to do daily work to remind myself that I am just an actor in this. And part of it is because of the way that the audience receives me when I come out of the theater. They really, it's different than any audience I've ever encountered before. And it does feel like they're all family, and I know they aren't. And I have to remind myself that sometimes. And it's the impact of the show. The show shatters people's hearts in a way.
Sadly, John Moore has left the Denver Post as the theater reporter and critic, but he gave us great insight into his work.
You mentioned how you review over 150 productions a year.
Yeah, for 10 years now.
I realize how deep and rich the creative community is in Colorado, but I think you hit it right on target. So many people don't know what's here. But your role is to help educate the people who are interested or might be interested.
Right.
What is that like for you? How do you reach out to your audience? How do you think of your audience?
Well, I'm consistently in somewhat of an adversarial role with the theater community, which is necessary but sad at the same time, because I think of myself as one of the great advocates for Colorado theater that we have, just by the commitment that I've had to the job and the volume of work that we do. But I love the fact that I get to
work at a job where I spend my entire life, in a sense, promoting and advocating for theater in Colorado just by doing what I do. When the Rocky Mountain News was in existence, Lisa Bornstein and I used to talk about what a privilege it was to be the only two writers in Denver who were full-time committed to doing nothing but writing about theater in Colorado. That is a rarefied position, and now that Lisa's gone, I feel the pressure even more to make, because I feel like I have to work every day. I have to take the responsibility very seriously. When you think about it, Eden, how many full-time jobs are there in theater in Colorado where somebody gets a salary working for one employer and they know where their next paycheck is coming, and it's all related to the theater? There are several full-time positions at the Denver Center, and there are some at the Arvada Center, but there are very few people, I would say less than 100 people, who are people who work full-time for one employer in the Colorado theater community. And in a sense, I feel like I'm one of those people. And when I talk to actors who really struggle to pay for their health insurance, and they don't know where their next job is coming, and they're working at banks and as waiters and waitresses, and they're doing it for the love, and they're doing it for gas money, and I get paid a salary. And I feel like if I took a day off, I feel like I wouldn't be respecting the commitment to the art that they have made.
Reviews are only a portion of what you do. What's your favorite part of what you do?
My favorite part is writing stories that are meaningful, that have a connection to the theater community, but can be of interest and importance to the entire readership of the paper. The theater community is an entree into amazing stories. It could be stories of people the lives that they live off the stage. It could be the trials and tribulations that they're going through, but it also could be the ways that they're changing the world. And in other ways, it's the issues that a particular play presents and allows you to talk about. Maybe it's Israel and Palestine, or maybe it's a historical moment. Theater, every night you go to the theater, you're exposed to a different world, and that's a different storytelling opportunity. And so when I get a chance to talk to a playwright about what they've dedicated their lives to, and it's a subject that I know that is going to be of interest to people who read the Denver Post but don't necessarily go see the theater, then I'm opening up the possibility that they might actually come and see a play. And that's a pretty great thing when people say, I never go to see the theater, but you wrote that story that was about Cesar Chavez, and I wanted to go see it, and they had a great time. You feel like you've done something useful.
Well, since that's the part you love, and I have to say I would absolutely agree with you. That's part of why I do this show. Is I love being able to promote the work that people do and spark those conversations. What's the part that's the hardest for you to do in your capacity at the Denver Post?
Oh, it's absolutely to say things in print that you know that are going to be hurtful for people to read, and I use that word really carefully when I say hurtful, because I learned this very early on, how careful you have to be to say what you have a responsibility to say, realizing that it's not necessarily going to be what a particular artist or creative or theater company wants to hear. But that is part of the adversarial role of the theater critic in the whole process. It's an important part of the process as well, somebody who's going to be holding you to a higher standard.
In that way, aren't you somewhat of an advocate as well as an adversary?
Well, I hope so. But what a lot of people don't understand is that when a theater critic, who that person, well, let me see if I can say this better way. A theater critic answers to his readers first, and to the artistic community second. The newspaper industry, everybody knows what it's like to be in the newspaper industry these days. It's actually a really exciting time to be in the newspaper with all of our multimedia developments and things like that. But everybody knows what's happening with the economy, and revenue is down. And at this time, it's more important than ever that we be responsible to the people who subscribe to the Denver Post. And it's always really difficult when you write a review and maybe it's not what a theater company was hoping for, and somebody will call you up and they will just say that really is disappointing to me. And it's hard to have those conversations. I love to have them because I hope it starts a dialogue. But as hard as those conversations can be, the most difficult calls to take are those people who are subscribers to the paper, and they say, I read your review of a certain play and I went to go see it, and I just want you to know I majored in theater and I only get to go to theater twice a year, and I went to go see that play, and why did you send me there? Because they, you know, and our interpretations to art are very individual and subjective, and so I don't say just because somebody didn't have a great time of it that they're necessarily right or wrong. There is no right or wrong. But sometimes you might know that you've just gone a little bit soft. And it's just easier sometimes to err on the side of being kind. But then
especially when you see the same creative people over and over again.
But sometimes being kind has a catch. When you go easy on someone and you know that it's going to be easier to run into that person at Safeway because you did, and you feel like you did the right thing, your mom's going to be proud of you. But at the same time, when somebody says, listen, I love the theater and my wife and I have small children and we only get to go see theater once or twice a year and the tickets are $60 a piece, and we went to go see this play and it was really disappointing for very specific reasons, and then we read your review and none of that was in there. We wouldn't have gone to see the show if you had done your job. And when I get those calls, I take those very seriously, and it reminds me that my job in here is not specifically to just advocate for every production that comes along and just find something positive to say about it, because you're not doing the theater company or the audience any good if you soft pedal. Because if somebody comes here based on your recommendation and then they have a lousy time, they're not coming back. And they're not going to respect your opinion ever again for that reason. But sometimes when you say a tough thing and somebody says, well, I think I might skip that, you've done, in some ways, you've done a favor to both parties, because they might give the next play a chance when you have a more positive notice, and then if they go see that play that's sort of been given a stamp of approval, then maybe they'll be more likely to become lifetime theater goers. But people go see a bad play and they're not going to come back.
So if someone has just moved to Denver, or if they're viewing this program, it's not very likely that they don't go to the theater at least occasionally. But suppose they're not that familiar with the theater in Colorado. What would be your advice, or how would you describe theater in Colorado?
I think theater in Colorado is incredibly exciting and varied. I think people are in for a surprise when they find out just how much theater there is in town, and a tremendous variety of it, from the Denver Center all the way down to some very professional community theaters in town. And when we talked earlier about there being 100 theater companies in the state, there's something for everyone. Where I wish that we could expand the dimension of theater in Colorado is that there are certain types of theater that we don't offer enough of. For years we championed the Shadow Theater Company as the only black theater company in town. We champion to this day Su Teatro as the only brown theater company in town. For 35 years we had Theater Group, which was the only gay theater company in town. And out of those, Su Teatro is the only one that's currently functional. And you can't call yourself a true metropolitan theater community at the level of Chicago or Seattle or New York if you don't have more diversified theater. We have a lot of theater companies that tend to do a lot of the same kind of playwrights, and that's good because that represents the bulk of what this community wants and will support. But at the same time, I believe in a theater community that sort of sets the agenda for the audience to follow, because they can't know what's not out there. And I wish we just had a wand that we could place over the theater community so that we had more resources and more of an ability to take risks, so that these really talented artists that we have here could try some different things and know that we have an audience that would go along. But in these economic times, you have to stay alive first. Yeah. And as every theater company has faced over the past 10 years, right now, I think it's about keeping your doors open.
Many in Colorado's theater community wanted to send their thanks and best wishes to John, and we include this special performance at the Henry Awards by Town Hall Arts Center's cast of Rent.
Seasons of love, 525
Remember, next week we start the new year at a new time, Friday nights at 7 p.m. on Colorado Public Television.
That's all for this edition. Remember to join us on Facebook and Twitter. With all that Colorado has to offer, we're here to help you keep it in focus. Thanks for watching. Good night.